Okay, Rabbi Sai, let's get going. We're on Daf Kuf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, and the Gemara was in the middle of a discussion, which happens in contract law all the time. You may have run across a clause in a contract that states something like this: in the event that one of the conditions of this contract is legally invalid, it will not invalidate the rest of the contract. Did you ever see that kind of disclaimer? Because sometimes even one part of a contract, if it's not legally okay, it could potentially spoil the entire contract. And this is really what the Gemara is trying to ascertain. A man wishes to make a gift before he dies in a way where a portion of that gift is not legally binding. Will it invalidate the other portion of the gift? So he's got two parties. One is an unborn child where the wife is not even pregnant. And he says, whatever child you will have will be the recipient of half of my estate. And then he turns to his other son, who's an adult, and he says, and you'll get the other half. So the question is, because it was made as a package gift, since I can't gift something to someone who does not yet exist, does it invalidate the other half of the gift? That was really the, right? Am I speaking a foreign language?
No.
This makes sense from what you were learning yesterday, right?
Right.
So this was the machlokas in the Gemara. It was a machlokas amoraim, and it was left as an unresolved issue. But it was suggested that when Rabbi Abin heard that it is possible for such a gift to take place, that he nodded his head. So, the Karkish Be'Reisha Be'Reshe, Be'Medrasha, in the base Medrash. But Ozel Legabe, so he went to him. So one of the rabbis went to Rabbi Abin to get clarification. Amar Le, Ilu Amar Le, Kini Kachamor Mikani. He said to him, what if I go over to my son or to a stranger, a third party, and I say, I want to give you a gift, but you should acquire it in the same way that my pet donkey will acquire a gift from my estate. So would that work? So the itmar kani kachamor lo kana, because after all, it's already been stated. If I want you to make a kinyan the way a chamor can make a kinyan, well, that's an absurdity, because a chamor cannot make a kinyan. So therefore, that for sure will not work using that kind of language. You should acquire like a chamor. So the question is, Rabbi Abin, then how could such a gift work if part of the gift is to an unborn child? So the Gemara answers, at v'chamor, but that's where we get into this issue. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem.
And Mazel Tov.
Oh, thank you.
You're a chassan.
That's right.
Yeah, Mazel Tov. So,
thank you very much.
Should have asach nachas.
Thank you very much.
Should have build a beautiful home. So at v'chamor, but what about you and the donkey? See, that's more analogous to what we're talking about over here. I'm not telling the human being that he should be kona like a donkey, but I want to split my estate between one of my children and my pet donkey. You know, this happens in the world today all the time. Everything is going to my pet Fluffy, the cat, right? Right? It's the same kind of mishigas,
only in LA.
Right, right. But so the fellow says to the giftee, he says, "I want you to have the estate together with my donkey." Will that work? And that's really more analogous to what we're talking about over here. So Rav Nachman Amar Kana Mechza, Rav Hamnuna Amar Lo Amar Klom, Rav Sheshis Amar Kana Hakol. We have a three-way machlokes in that kind of situation. So Rav Nachman says that the human acquires the half that he wants, that the giver wants the recipient to have, because basically he's saying the sole beneficiaries of my estate are you and the donkey. So he's clearly saying that you should get half and the donkey should get half. Now the donkey can't inherit half. No matter what modern society says, your pet cat cannot inherit your estate. But since he clearly wanted the human to get half, that part of it will work. Rav Hamnuna says, I disagree. The kinyan doesn't take effect at all, because it's an absurdity, since you've tied the two together. And the chamor can't be kona, so the human can't be kona either through that gift. And Rav Shesha says, no, the human gets everything. Rav Shesh's attitude is that a person knows, a gifter knows that a donkey can't acquire. So what he basically was suggesting is, I want you, the human, to get whatever is possible for you to get from my estate in the event that my donkey cannot acquire. So therefore he means for the human to get everything. So Amar Rav Sheshis mino aminola. So Rav Sheshis now wants to defend his position when he says that the human gets everything. The Tanya Rabbi Yossi Omer ein lechamar b'kishos ela pinimi shabo lefichach keshehu tori mosef ala chitzon shabo v'tore. So the Brisa says that Rabbi Yossi makes a statement in the Brisa having to do with taking truma. Now the premise of this Brisa is that when you have bad quality produce, you're not allowed to use that bad quality to use as truma for the good quality produce. You can't get by on the cheap and say, well, I don't like this produce anyway, it tastes bad, so you know what, I'll just give it to the Kohen and use it as truma. Halachically, that's not permitted. You have to, if you have good quality produce, you have to use good quality produce as the tithe that you're going to use for truma. So the Brisa basically quotes Rabbi Yossi as saying that when you take a whole melon, part of that melon is bitter. There's a bitter core inside this gourd that we're talking about. So really, it's not usable for truma. So when you take a whole melon and you want to use that as 1/50th of your crop, let's say for the other 49 melons, you've got to add a little bit more from an additional melon to supplement that one melon that you're using for truma, because you're not allowed to use the middle part. But the Gemara wants to prove from here, amai at v'chamorhu. But at the end of the day, since a guy took the whole melon and is using it as truma, part of that is not usable. So what you see from here is that even though part of it is not usable, it still can be taken in its entirety as truma. And you basically just say, we disregard the middle part, and we supplement it with a portion of melon from a second melon. That's the same thing as at v'chamor. I go over to a guy and I say, you and my donkey shall receive my whole estate. Basically, the donkey is like the bitter part of the melon that can't be used for truma. So we basically discard it, and we imagine the melon as being without that middle bitter core, and we just take a portion of another melon. So essentially, basically, says Rav Sheshis, is that you see that you completely discard the portion of the gift that doesn't work, and you give everything to the other recipient who can receive. It's the same, conceptually it's the same. So the Gemara says, Shaini hasam de midioraisa truma ma'al yasai. So the Gemara says that's not a good analogy, Rav Sheshis. You can't prove it from there. You know why? Because technically, if a person uses a bitter portion of a melon for truma, it does work. It's only lechatchila that we don't allow him to do it. But b'di'evid, if he took a bitter fruit or a bad quality fruit and used it as truma, it would work. And that could be the whole reason why it works over there. But maybe I'll tell you in our situation, if a person tries to make a gift to a person and a donkey, you have to discard everything and say that the whole thing goes out the window and doesn't work. And how do I know that truma b'di'evid works if you use a bitter or bad quality produce item? The Amar Rabbi Ilah, aminayin l'tarim min haral ayafa shetruma so truma. As Rabbi Ilah said, how do you know that if you take bad quality and use it as your truma that it works? Shene'amar v'lo sisvu alav chet baharim chemes chelbo mimenu v'im eino kadosh nasias chet lama mikan l'tarim min haral ayafa shetruma so truma. The pasuk says, do not incur a sin when you tithe. Now, what is the pasuk talking about? It says, what kind of sin is the pasuk talking about? It's saying that people will try to get away on the cheap by using bad quality produce as their truma. That would be a sin. But technically, it would still be a valid act of tithing, because if it wasn't a valid act of tithing, then there would be no sin. Mimonavshach, you've either accomplished the act of truma or you haven't accomplished. If you haven't accomplished, then what sin are you doing? You just have to retithe. So therefore, you see from here that because technically it works, that could be the reason why we don't cause the bitter part of the melon to disqualify the act of truma. But it could be in our case, when I try to gift a human and a donkey together, it could be that the whole thing goes out the window. Amar le Rav Mordechai le Rav Ashi, Masiv Rav Ivya Tiyuvta. So Rav Mordechai now goes over to Rav Ashi. And remember, we'll see, Rav Ashi is going to defend the position that it works, that the gift at least works in part. So the question is, that the gift doesn't work at all. And the question is, Ma'isa b'chamesh nashim u'bahen shtei achayos, v'likait echad kalkola shel te'enim, v'shalahen ha'isa v'shal shvias ha'isa. Va'amar hare kulchen mukudashos li b'kalkola zos, v'kibla echas men al yidei kulan. So let's just set up the case. It's a case in Maseches Kiddushin. Guy goes over to 5 women. Now, out of these 5 women, 2 of them are sisters. And he basically says, I'm taking this basket of figs, and just to make the case even more interesting, the figs come from their orchard. But the reason why he's allowed to use them is because it's a Shemitah year. So he picks figs, which are now Hefker because it's Shemitah. He acquires the figs for himself, and he says, okay, ladies, how about a quick wedding? He says, I want all of you to be Mekudashos to me through this basket of figs. So one of the women acts as the representative of all of the women. She receives the basket. So what's the halacha? So the kibla. So amru chachamim ein achayos mekudashas. That the sisters, the 2 sisters, are not included in the marriage contract. Now, why is it? Because you can't simultaneously marry 2 sisters, as we said in the Gemara in Kiddushin. Any Kiddushin that's not Mesura Labia, that cannot be consummated with intimacy, does not work as Kiddushin. And since if I'm trying to do a simultaneous Kiddushin, I won't be able to be intimate with either sister because it'll be Achos Ishto, so then neither of them can be Mekudeshes. Right? So neither sister is married, but from it, the implication being is that Achayosu de'en Mekudashos, Anachriyos Mekudashos. But the other 3, it is a valid act of Kiddushin. Va'amai, at v'chamorhi. But why should that be? If you hold that when you try to gift to a human and a donkey simultaneously, the whole thing is invalid. But you see from over here, a guy tried to present Kiddushin to 2 sisters and 3 non-sisters. Why don't we say that since it doesn't work for the sisters, it doesn't work for the other 3? But the fact that we don't say that shows us that the gift at least works for the human. So Amar Lei, Hainu de Chazoi Rav Huna bar Ivya Bechelma, de Mosif Rav Ivya to Yuvta. So Rav Ashi said, this question explains to me why last night I had a dream about Rav Huna, the son of Rav Ivya. Couldn't understand why was Rav Huna's face coming to me in a dream. But now today that you, Rav Mordechai, have presented me a question in the name of Rav Ivya, I understand why I saw his son in a dream. Because it was like a portent that Tata is going to come and zets you with a kasha. So, but let me answer your question. Lav miu kimna da omar harayu mikem labia tiskadishli. But Rav Ashi says that's not such a big kasha. Because the Gemara itself in Kiddushin says that the only reason why the other 3 are married is because the guy said explicitly, I only want this basket to be makadesh those of you with whom I can be intimate. And so since he said that explicitly, he explicitly excluded the sisters from Kiddushin. But it could taka be if he did not make that explicit exclusion, then none of them would be Mekudeshes. Next. So we've seen this Gemara before. A man says to his wife, he says, you know what, sweetheart, when I die, I want you and our children to get the entire estate. So he's reapportioning the estate. He's not using it, he's making a matana. He's not having it work according to the standard lines of Yerusha. So the question is, how much does the wife get from that verbiage and how much do the kids get? There's 2 ways of looking at it. Let's say they have 3 children together, 3 sons. So one way of looking at it is divide the estate in 4 portions, let her get 1 portion, and let each of the children get a portion. But the other way of looking at it is he said you and the kids. So you get half, and the kids get the other half, and they divide it. Okay? And that's taka what Rav Yosef says. Omer Rav Yosef kansa mechza. The Omer Rav Yosef mino aminola. Rav Yosef says, you know how I know this? The Tanya Rabbi Omer v'haisa la'aron levanav mechza le'aron mechza levanav. Because the Torah, in talking about a certain type of korban, says it shall go to Aaron and his sons. And from that pasuk, because it specifies Aaron and his sons, when it could have just said the Kohanim, we learn from here that half goes to Aaron and half goes to his sons. So Amar le Abaya bishlam ahasam Aaron bar Chalukahu la'achi parat ve'rachmana l'mishkal palga. But Isha lav bas Yerushahi daya shetitol ke'echad min habanim. Abaya disagrees. He says that raya that you're bringing from the pasuk by Aaron, I could tell you is totally different. He says if the Torah had written nothing other than the Kohanim get their portion, I would have said that every Kohen gets an equal portion because they're all Kohanim. Why did the Torah have to specify Aaron and his sons? Must be it was coming to reapportion that which I would have thought otherwise. And that's how I know that it's telling me that Aaron gets half and his sons get half. But over here, if a man says to his wife, you and the kids will get the estate, he doesn't necessarily mean to say that you get half and the kids get half. There's nothing extraneous in his verbiage. Maybe all he means to say is that I want you to get an equal portion with the kids who are my normal heirs. Since you normally wouldn't get anything, I want to make sure you get something. So I want you to get a share that will be equal to each one of the children. So therefore, we have a machlokas between Rav Yosef and Abaya. So the Gemara says, Eini, can this really be so, Abaya, that she only gets an equal portion? She only gets like a quarter of the estate and not a half? V'ha'uvda hava b'naharda v'agbe shmuel palga, and b'teveria v'agbe Rabbi Yochanan palga. First of all, we know of two real-life cases, one in Naharda, where Shmuel was the Morda Asra, and one in Tveria, where Rabbi Yochanan was the Morda Asra, and they both paskened like Rav Yosef. That in a situation where a husband said, you and the kids will get my estate, they gave half to the wife and half to be divided among the children. But furthermore, says the Gemara, V'su ki asa Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Omar, hahu demei kalila, deshadu devei malka, abule istrugi, Amar Rebbe nesvo abule palga istruge palga. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef brought the following maisa from the times of Rebbe. There was a king who made an edict that the money that needed to be raised to craft a new crown for the king was going to be placed upon the abule and the istrugi of the Jewish community. Now, what are abule and istrugi? So the Rashbam says the abule are the ashirim, the wealthy, the upper, the elite class, and the astrugi are the elected officials. Right? And so even though they have more money than the regular people, they don't have as much money as the abuli. So it's basically first class and second class. The Rabbeinu Gershom learns it slightly different. He says the abuli are the city folk and the astrugi are the village folk. But the bottom line is it translates into the same idea. The abuli are more affluent. The astrugi are middle class. They have money, but not as much as the abuli. And so in this situation, the king said, I want the abuli and the astrugi to pay for my crown. Rebbe paskin that the abuli class had to pay for half, and the astrugi had to pay for half, even though that was not commensurate to their income. Okay? But why? Because the king said it in that way. He said abuli and astrugi. So Rebbe said, you interpret that as 50-50. So the same thing should be true over here. If a guy says you and the kids, he means you get 50% and the kids get 50%. But the Gemara says, no, that's not a good analogy, because hachi hashta hasam me'ikara ki havukasvi abuli havukasvi v'istrugi ki havukasvi abuli havukasvi v'istrugi ki havukasvi abuli havukasvi kama v'istruge havumisaye bahadayu v'yada malka da havukomisaye. Hashta, Maida, Kakasvi, Abule, Vea Istrugi, Lememra, Dahani Palga, Bahani Palga. He says it's different in that case. He says in that situation, normally we would have expected the king to write, I want the Abuli to take care of the tax for the crown. And it would have been implied that the second class, or the middle class, I should say, would have participated in a way that was commensurate to their income. Everyone would have contributed. And the king would have just said, I want the upper class to pay for the crown, And it would have been implied that the middle class should contribute whatever they can, which would have been much less. Why then did the king have to specify that he wants the Estrugi to participate? It must be that extraneous verbiage meant to imply that he doesn't want it to be a tax that is commensurate to people's incomes, but he wants it to be a flat tax, half paid by the Estrugi and half paid by the Abuli. And that's the reason why, because of the excess verbiage. But in our situation, you have no excess verbiage from which you can infer that he wants his wife to get half and the kids to get half. So, Masav Reb Zera, let's ask another question, says Reb Zera. Ha'omer harei alai mincha meya isaron lahavi b'shnei kelim, mevi shishim b'kli echad ve'arboim b'kli echad, v'imhevi chamishim b'kli echad v'chamishim b'kli echad yatsa. The Brisa says that if a person makes a pledge that he's going to bring 100 isarons of flour as a mincha, that's a very large amount of flour to bring as a mincha. We know that the Torah will not allow a mincha to be more than 60 isarons in one container. Does anyone remember the reason why? Why can't a mincha be more than 60 isarons in one container? Because otherwise, when you mix the oil, it won't mix uniformly. It's too much flour for it to mix uniformly. So when a person says, I want to bring a huge mincha of 100 isarons, and I'll bring it perforce in two different containers, we assume that he wants one to be of 60, which is the maximum size, and the other remaining 40 will go in another container and be a separate mincha. If, b'di'evet, he put 50 in one and 50 in the second, that's also okay. So the Gemara says, imhevi in lechatchila lo, v'isal kadaitach kol ki hagavna palgu, afilu lechatchila nami. So the Gemara says, I have a question. He says, if you're telling me that anytime a person says you and the kids, this and this, he means 50-50, so then if a person said, I'm going to bring 100 isarons in two kalim, this kli and that kli, then we should say that lechatchila he means to say 50-50, not 60-40. Why in this case are you assuming that he means 60 in the first kli and 40 in the second kli? Why don't you assume he means 50-50? Like you've been suggesting all along, Rav Yosef. So the Gemara says that's also not a good analogy. Because hachi hashta hasam anan sahadi dahai gavra miikar lekorban gadol kamachavein, v'hai dekamer b'shnei kelim, diyada delo efshar liisuye b'kli echad. So kama de efshar liisuye maisinan. The Gemara says because our assumption, when we hear a guy saying he wants to bring a huge mincha of 100 isarons in two kalim, really what he means to say is, I wish I could bring it all in one kli, but because I can't, I'll use a second kli. It's not that he wants it to be 50-50. He wants to bring the biggest possible mincha that he can in one kli. And whatever is left over, because it will not fit into that one kli, I'll bring that as the second mincha. That's the assumption in that particular situation. And that's why lechatchila it should be 60-40 and not 50-50. Let us go weiter. V'hilchasa kavasi de Rav Yosef b'sadeh inyan umechza. And there are three halachas that are Bava Basra related halacha, where even though normally we paskin like Rabbi when he argues with Rav Yosef, here we always paskin, in these three cases, we paskin like Rav Yosef. What are they? The first one was from the first parak of Bava Basra, which was the law of Sadeh. It had to do with the laws of Bar Metzra, when you have first rights of refusal because you're a neighbor, and it has to do with your father-in-law's estate. So the Rav Yosef said there is no rule of first rights of refusal when it comes to an in-law's estate. Second halacha had to do with what's called inyan, which had to do with how long after making a kinyan, when two people are still schmoozing about it, does a person have to retract. So Rav Yosef said that you can retract on the deal as long as you're still talking about it in the same conversation. We had that not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And the third halacha is our halacha here, that if a man says, I want you and the kids to get the estate, he means 50 for you, the wife, and 50 for the kids. Next, Hahu d'shadar piski d'shiroi lebeise. A man sent a package of fabric to, I guess he was overseas, he sends a package of fabric to his home. And so the question is, who is this package meant for? There's sons and there's daughters. Who is it meant for? So Amar Rabbi Ami, ha-re'uyin labanim labanim, re'uyin labanos labanos. So first he says that whatever fabric is usable for male clothing should be used for male clothing, and whatever fabric is usable for female clothing should be used for femle clothing. I guess if it's like pink polka dots, unless one of the kids is, unless one of the boys is a little bit different, right? We would assume that he means for that to go for the girl. Okay, so velo amran ela deles le kalasa vel is le kalasa le kalase shada. But we assume that he wants the daughters to get the more colorful fabric, only if he has no daughters-in-law. But if he has married sons who have daughters-in-law, then we assume he wants the flamboyant fabric to go to his daughters-in-law over his daughters, which sounds strange when you first hear about it, but let's qualify it further. But that's only assuming that his own daughters are already married. You see, the pecking order that the Gemara is suggesting here is like this. When a man marries off a daughter, he's basically passed her off and she's off the payroll. And so the assumption is that he doesn't want to have to pay for any gifts for her. He figures her husband or her husband's family will take care of her. And therefore, if he sends female fabric, it's assumed to go to his daughters-in-law first and not to his married daughters. But that's only if his daughters are married. If he has single daughters, then the order is reversed. We assume he wants it first to go to his daughters before his daughters-in-law. Hahu da'amr lahu nechasai lebanai havale bra ubrata mikaru inshi lebra banai odim lo karu inshi lebra banai ulamoshcha lebrata b'matana ka'ase. So the question is like this. A man makes a declaration and he says, my estate shall go to my children. Now he has two children, one's a son and one's a daughter. What does he mean when he makes that statement? Does he mean to say that he wants his son to be the sole heir? And it does occur sometimes in halacha that when you say children, you merely mean your singular child. Or does when a person says my children, he dafka means children in the plural, and therefore he means to include his daughter in it, receiving a matana from the estate before he dies. So Amar Abaye Toshma. So Abaye says, look, the psukim seem to imply that even though you say children in the plural, it could sometimes be referring to one child. Uvnei Dan Chushim. The children of Dan was Chushim. Chushim is one son, and it calls him Bnei in the plural. So you see that he means his son will be the heir. Amar Le Rava Dilma Kidatana Devechizki Yeshahi Merubin Kechushim Shalkan. He says, that's not a good raya, because there are some who learn that there was no son of Dan's named Chushim, but rather Uvnei Dan, the children of Dan, were like Chushim. They were like clusters of reeds because there were so many of them. So that you can't bring a raya from there. So Ela Amar Rava Uvnei Falu Eliyav. But here's another pasuk. The children of Palu was Eliyav. So you see that plural word applies to one child. And Rav Yosef Amar, he learns it from Tanakh, Uvnei Esan Azariah. The children of Eitan was Azariah. So again, you use a plural word to imply one child. Hahu da'amar lahu nichasai lebanai havale bra ubar bara. Karu inshi lebar bara bara? Oh lo. Similar question. A man says, my assets will go to my children, plural. He has only one son, but his son has a son. So the question is, what does he mean? Does he mean to give all of his assets to his son? Or does he mean to say, since he used the plural, he wants half to go to his son and half as a matana to go to his grandson upon his death? So does a person call his grandson his son? My kinderlach, right? Does he mean his grandchildren as well or not? So Rav Chaviva Amar Karu Inshi Labar Bara Bara, Mar Baravashi Amar Lo Karu Inshi Labar Bara Bara, Machlokas Amoroi. And Mar Baravashi says no, he doesn't mean his grandson. Tanya Kavasi Demar Baravashi, we have a brisa to support that position, because the brisa says, Hamudar Hanami Banim Mutar Bivnei Vanim. If a person takes a vow that he's not going to take any benefit from his children, he's allowed to benefit from his grandchildren. Because a person does not call, when he uses the word children, he means it specifically to his immediate kin, not to his grandchildren. Let's go on quickly to the next Mishnah. Hiniach banim gedolim uktanim, hishbichu gedolim es hanachasim, hishbichu laemtza. Let's say a man dies, he leaves over an estate, he's got adult children and minor children. Let's say the adult children take it upon themselves to do some kind of improvements to the property to cause the property to appreciate in value. Well, that appreciation, they can't claim afterwards, well, you only meant it to appreciate our portion, not our kid brother's portion. No, since they appreciated the entire property before it was properly divided, whatever appreciation goes into the property has to be split evenly among them all. Now, im amru re'u ma shehiniach abba harei anu osin va'ochlin hishbichu la'asma. But let's say before they begin the land improvement or whatever appreciation they're doing, they say, listen, we know we haven't divided the estate, but we are anticipating that in the will, our father wants us to get the north part of the estate. And that's what we're going to be focusing on to improve because that's going to be our portion. If they made that statement publicly to a Beis Din or in front of Eidim or to the Asomim themselves, so then, because they've made that disclaimer in advance, once they put in those improvements and there's an official division of the estate according to what they anticipated, they don't have to share the appreciation with the other minor children. But im amra re'u ma shiniach li baili hareini osa ve'ocheles hishbicha la'atzma. Similarly, if a man had gifted his wife, let's say a portion of his estate before he died, if she makes improvements to the estate before it's formally divided and it accrues in value, she has to split that accrual with the other heirs. If, however, before the fact, she makes a public declaration that I anticipate that my husband left me this portion of the estate, and I'm going to develop that, and then it accrues in value. Since she made that in advance, and then the estate divides according to her anticipated wishes, then we let her keep the entire appreciation. The Gemara now says, Omer of Chaviva berei de Rav Yosef, berei de Rava mishmei de Rava. Lo shanu ela sheshavchu nechasim achmas nechasim. Aval shavchu nechasim achmas atzman hishbichu la'atzman. When we started off by saying that if the older brothers improve the estate, that they have to split whatever accrual, whatever appreciation takes place with their kid brothers, that's only true if they used the assets of the estate itself to do those improvements. But let's say they went into their own private bank accounts, withdrew money from their own accounts, or took money that they owned independently and invested in the property, then we would not require them to share the appreciation with their kid brother. So, Aini, is this really so? V'ha'amar Rabbi Chanina afilu lo hiniach lahem aviham ela udaini haschar le'emtza. But wait a minute, we know that Rabbi Chanina taught that even if their father left for the kids, let's say the older brother and the younger brother, he left for them a bore, a well, a water well with its cover. He says they still have to, if they take wages for people to draw water from the well, the older brother has to share the profits with the younger brother, even though the older brother is normally the one who's manning the well. And listen, when he's manning the well, that's his own investment. He's not taking from the estate. He's placing his own body there to charge admission. Right? So why do you say that he has to share it? Why can't he say, listen, I'm the one that was working there, so I'm the one who's entitled to keep it? So the Gemara answers, Shaini udaini dilinitirusahu davida vafilu ketanim nami matsu minatrila. The answer is because the whole investment that you put into a well is by standing there, making sure that people who haven't paid don't take. He says even a small child that's 5 years old can do that. So the fact that the older brother said, I'm going to stand there, and he didn't ask his younger brother to do it, is not an excuse. He could have asked his younger brother to do it, and they could have, and that's the reason why he has to share in the wages, because it's something that both of them can do equally. But in a situation where there's actual investment from a private account of the older brother, and he improves the property from that, there the halacha would not require him to share the profits with his younger brother. And we'll hold it here for today. Have a wonderful day. Kaddish.